Darts Premier League Night 2 is here. My name's Corbin from Parlay Club, and I've got the best bets and the plays the books do not want you knowing about, basically. Let's get right into it. Last week, went 3-0 on client plays, and very much looking to do the same. So, as always, drop a comment with who you think's going to win. Give me some predictions, what you're liking, really. And let's get right into it, because the first game is an absolute blockbuster. Luke Littler versus Humphreys. Let's quickly go over what happened last week. So Littler, he played okay in round one. He lost to Van Veen. He was averaging just under 97 and 33% on checkouts. For him, that's below his standards, and I expect a full bounce back this week, which we will get into in just a second. Humphreys, on the other hand, had a nice win against Price, winning 6-5, breaking him right at the end to basically win the game. He then looked awful against Van Gerwen in the second round of the Premier League last week. He was just slow. He just wasn't there at all, basically. So previewing this match, I love Littler at, you can get minus 200 to the minus 215 range that it's got here on the money line. I love this as a bounce back spot for Littler. Mentioned he lost last week, but he just kind of has that psychological edge, I think, over Humphreys. He's won the last 4 head to heads. And how often do you see Littler losing back to back in any game, let alone in back to back Premier League weeks? So, yeah, I don't see Littler. I think Littler to win the whole night. I don't know if I can find those odds quickly, but I think Littler wins this whole night, particularly starting with Humphreys. A way you can bring this down from minus 215 is to put it with the over 7.5 legs, which I thought was quite interesting. It brings it down to minus 130. That's very likely going to be a client play or a strong consideration. Both push each other quite hard. As I mentioned, if Humphreys comes out looking like the one against Van Gogh, it could easily be 6-1, 6-2, but even a 6-2 would get us over the 7.5 legs. I think Littler's got far too much for him. I'd love to see what's the 180s for him. 4.5. Or if you can get the over 3.5 on Littler, I think that's a great spot. Again, I like the under on Humphreys 180s, but I don't think I can lay minus 165 on that kind of price. So yeah, going with Littler. Think it's a strong bounce back week. Onto Van Goen versus Josh Rock. I'm surprised that Van Goen is only minus 125 here. Mentioned how I liked him against Bunting last week and he came through for us. That was one of the client plays. I thought MVG would have a better year than he did last year. It would be hard. It would be hard to have a worse year, but I didn't expect him to turn up and win the entire night, which, quite frankly, was very impressive. He looks far more confident. He looks assured of himself. Obviously, you can just see by looking at him the weight loss. He had so many personal issues off the oche last year with like his teeth, with his braces, some family issues. I think he split up with his wife. So you can basically make excuses for him last year, and last week was a great comeback. Meanwhile, Rock crumbled as expected. I mentioned it last week. He's so overhyped. Everyone's got him as the second coming of Luke Littler, the next big thing, and at the minute, I just don't see it. He lost 6-2 to Clayton. I'm going to be honest, Rock didn't play that badly in that he averaged just under 102 and 40% on checkouts, so not awful. But when you're losing 6-2 to Johnny Clayton, it kind of proves the point here. So yeah, I really like Van Gogh in the minus 120, minus 125 kind of range. Or you can potentially sprinkle an over. I don't know. I mentioned it on the last game. I don't know what maybe Van Gogh and over 7.5 is for this. It's obviously going to be plus money. That could well be worth a look, quite honestly. I mean, as bad as I think Rock is, I don't think he's going to lose. I think he can still easily get to 2 legs like he did last week. It's very hard to lose more than a 6-2. Depends also who's throwing first. If Rock's throwing first, I think that gives Van Gogh an even better advantage, quite honestly. Just wanted to also mention that I'm still running my 7-day promo, which if you got it last week, wow, you're loving life. 7 days for only $15 discounted at DubClub. All links in the bio, comments, all of that kind of stuff. This is going to be the last day that I'm running this promo, and then it's going to go up to the original price. I mean, 140 units last year, already up 150. Already up 51 units this year. 20 units in the last 7 days. I mean, rocking and rolling. Huge weekend ahead. 5% plays, 4% plays. We've got a huge slate across all sports, not just darts, but we will have, of course, darts plays. I bet every play myself, so obviously I stand behind it. Fully transparent, tracked record. See the spreadsheet linked in my description, bio, all of that stuff as well. Or if you want something a bit longer term, also have monthly and yearly packages that are available for as little as $2 a day. So yeah, also there's a guarantee win package for the year. Highly recommend jumping on all of these. Never had a losing year, and I mean we're already at 50 units for the year, and what we're a month just over a month into the year. I mean I'm going for 200 units for the entire year. So yeah, highly recommend you jump on and get on the client plays. Back to the action. Right, who is the next game? I think it is Johnny Clayton versus Bunting. Oh my god. Bunting, it continues. I think you just have to keep fading Bunting. I mean, Clayton's probably the second or third weakest player in this Premier League lineup, but Bunting just finds a way to throw it away every single week, even if he's playing okay. First, I'll start with Clayton. Played amazing in round one last week against Rock. I think he had a 109 average. He was flying. Not so much in the second match against Van Veen, but he's far more consistent and handles situations far better than Bunting. I think this number is hugely playable at minus 135. Definitely worth a unit or two. Again, will likely be a client play because I think I'm just going to fade Bunting every single week. Uh, Bunting had 25% checkouts last week against Van Gogh, and I think he lost 6-2 in the end, I think it was. Yeah, I think it's as simple as you just fade him every week. Clayton's not the most attractive matchup, but again, Bunting just doesn't look like he can hack the pressure of the Premier League just yet. Also mentioned that I think he's got either 3 or 4 wins, all against like non-top 50 players. So his confidence is through the floor. And if he loses against Clayton tomorrow night, it's just a straight fade. And my Bunting not to make the playoffs at minus 300, I think it was, is looking like some seriously good value right now. Because yeah, I don't see a world in which he does it. I wonder what the under on the 180s is as well. Neither of these are big 180s. I mean, under 6.5 180s. I haven't got the stats off the top of my head, but that sounds really good. Bunting's never the biggest 180 hitter, and unless Clayton comes out nuclear like he did last week in round one, I think this under 6.5 is a seriously good number. I'm gonna definitely dig into that more after I have finished this video, and then another blockbuster of a game: Price versus Van Veen. Wow. Price played well last week, narrowly losing to Humphreys. It was a weird game in that he didn't really put any pressure on the Humphreys throw. That's where he kind of seemed to have some mistakes or some bad couple of visits. But on his own throw, he was playing really well. He was pushing. I didn't think Humphreys was going to get the break until the very last throw, and then he kind of just got him out of nowhere. He was hanging on, but I'm really surprised that they have Van Veen as the underdog here. I mean, Price played well at the Players' Championship, which is the smaller tournaments. They basically don't play it on stage. It's kind of like I don't really know what you describe it. It's kind of in just the back room somewhere. Price obviously played in that, reached the final, had a narrow loss to Nyman, so he's obviously in good form. Van Veen lost in the second and the first round. They played 2 of these tournaments during the week. So it's one of those, I don't normally put too much stock into those kind of tournaments because they don't mean as much. The motivation's not as high. And I wonder if that's what swayed the price to the price on price to minus 150. I think that's a shock to me. I mean, just mentioned Van Veen reached the final of the Premier League last week. He did beat a subpar Littler and Clayton, who basically fell apart. So I guess maybe they're looking at that and saying, oh, he only got there because of the other two playing subpar. But Van Veen was game. Uh, I I like Price to win, but I don't think I can lay minus 115 in this matchup. I think this is a great over. What is the over this week, actually? 9.5, or I quite like this over 8.5 at minus 310. You could probably put that with something like, as I mentioned earlier, like the Littler money line, that kind of thing. That's what I would be. That's what I would be looking at. But some interesting spreads here. I mean, Price minus 3.5. It's minus 750, but I'd be surprised if he loses by 3 or more legs. So yeah, I'm going Price, but not gonna bet it probably. Interesting live bet though. If one of them gets down, I'm very much tempted to take whoever's the underdog at that point. I think the price will move heavily depending on who throws first. If Price is throwing first, it's probably going to go to minus 130. If Van Veen is throwing first, I think he goes to favourite. So quite a close matchup. And then I have to mention it. The bullseye finishes. I mean, I mentioned it last week. You basically take every single match to go under half a bullseye finish. You could even sprinkle the plus 323, but the way you want to do it is this 2 pick round robin. As I mentioned last week, it basically puts every combination together. So it puts the Price and Van Veen matchup with the Clayton and Bunting, with the Van Gogh and Rock, and the Littler Humphreys. It basically gives you every possible 2 leg combo. Obviously had none last week in the first round. What made it even better is not a single person even attempted it in round one. So basically cashed everything, cashed the 4 pick parlay, so everything together, cashed the 2x2s. So that was a very nice win. I think again, I'm just going to play it every single week. Interestingly enough, in the semi-finals, Van Gogh did hit one. The other game didn't have one, and then in the final, Van Veen and Van Gogh each attempted one, but also missed. So by the judge of that, Van Gogh technically had 2 attempts over the whole night, but none in round one. It's also the first match starts so quickly. I wonder if they're not as prepared in the first round, or they start off a bit cold. We've seen that with Littler in the past. So yeah, it's definitely a look that I am going to continue to play throughout the whole year, probably, unless something dramatically changes, quite honestly. Just wanted to mention as well, as I said, promo 7 days for only $15. I'm not going to go over all the records again, but winning, who doesn't love money? On a huge hot streak, huge weekend ahead, and hopefully you join us. As always, drop a like, subscribe. Gonna continue to do these darts videos every single week, previewing wherever they go. I can't remember the whole schedule, but every Premier League darts night, I will be here breaking it down. Drop a comment with who you like, and let's cash.